Hi, I'm John Stein, Executive Director of the Open Voice Network. We make voice worthy of user trust, and this is the Future of Voice podcast. Welcome. I'd love to welcome Shilp Agarwal, Blutag co-founder and CEO. That's Blutag. Shilp, thanks for joining us in this latest edition of our podcast.
Thank you for having me, John. It's so great to be here.
It's our pleasure. And for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting Shilp, he's a serial entrepreneur, more than 15 years of experience in all aspects of e-commerce, entrepreneurship, and retail industry technology. He frequently shares his deep understanding of voice-based commerce as a speaker, a moderator, a panelist at various industry events. And so we're very fortunate and delighted to have Shilp with us today. Now, prior to Blutag, Shilp founded, is it
Yes,
Zool.com?
Zool.com. That's correct.
One of North America's leading fine jewelry e-retailers. So he's been a merchant. He's taken a markdown or two, perhaps. But those of you who are retailers listening in, he's one of yours. He's one of the tribe. And Blutag, let's talk about that in a moment. Leading voice commerce platform, helping brands deliver branded voice-based shopping experiences to their customers. Blutag's a no-code platform, already has integrations into most of the e-market e-commerce platforms, Shopify, BigCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, and more. Shilp, again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on here on the Future of Voice podcast. Let's talk about that transition from being in the jewelry business to being a voice platform, a voice solution. Tell us that origin story. How did we get from there to here?
Absolutely. I love talking about that. My background was always in technology. My very first job was working at Lucent Technologies. And when I was brought in there, I used to, literally do desktop support, help, fix people's computers. And, this is very early days when, we didn't really have the internet the way we know it today. And I then transitioned into helping Lucent build their intranet web infrastructure. And that's where I got into the whole, web building e-commerce aspects of things. And, soon after that, it was early days of e-commerce. Amazon was crushing it with the books and, people were selling all sorts of stuff. And one area that I thought was kind of missing and I saw that was going to be something that was going to be big online was going to be mass market, affordable, fine jewelry. And I knew a really good friend of mine. His cousin was a big diamond manufacturer out of the Diamond District in New York. Went and pitched to him, and we kind of just went for it, right? So we were one of the very first online only jewelry companies selling mass market diamond jewelry. So we went through some really good days, and then when we hit that 2008 2009 period.
Sure.
Selling things people didn't really need wasn't the best place to be. So at that point, honestly, John, we went through a phase where things were getting to a stage where we're like, should we just shut this thing down? Right? It was expensive to acquire customers, and the business wasn't that great. So there was two things. We knew one thing, right? There were two things happening. One, we knew that acquiring those customers was high. But at the same time, we probably had the most elite online customers that were using credit cards to buy diamonds online in those days, right? So if we could figure out a way to retain them and have a good lifetime value, this business would always make sense. So that's when we kind of dipped into, you could call it raw data science, like pre-data science days, creating manual newsletters that, hey, if they bought an engagement ring, let's send them newsletters with matching wedding bands, right? Which sounds so normal now, but it was kind of like not really there back in the days. We made that whole into a system because that started working, right? Then we introduced a line of bridal party gifts, saying that, okay, let's follow their journey. Mother of the bride earrings, father of the bride cufflinks. So, so that brought our business really into a place where it started thriving again. And for me, it was never about customer acquisition, but it was always about retention. So when these initial voice devices started coming in, for me, it was an instant reaction that connecting with customers through voice assistants, it's going to be the most natural and convenient way for brands to deliver that convenience to their customers. And that's going to eventually turn into longevity and kind of retention and loyalty. And build that into a platform, and here we are. We have some really prominent brands that are seeing the value that we built it out for.
We're going to talk about that in a moment, Shilp, but you just gave us kind of an MBA course in the value of data and how the technology is used to give, in a sense, to provide the retailer with all kinds of usable data. You're turning that into additional adjacent offers. You're turning that into, and you focused on retention. What about the web and what about data? What did you see again with the purpose of retention? Because retaining a customer is less expensive than acquiring one.
Mhm.
What did you see? When did the kind of the lights turn on for you and you say, "Oh my goodness, here's a tremendous opportunity"? What did you see?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, right, it's like about 65% of revenue for all brands today comes from existing customers, right? I mean, the cost of advertising is going high. Email engagement continues to decline. Social media engagement is declining. So there is no constant. The only constant that you have is what do you do with your existing customers, especially when this retention number is so high, right? And in today's environment, that number needs to be even higher than that 65% number for brands to really be able to survive in the future. So the way you do that is by leveraging, what you know about the customer and how you can, provide them a personalized offering that makes sense to them. And there's ways to do that by having data that is present to you from the customer, the first party data, and then leveraging anything else that we have access to as a third party data, and you have to combine that to come up with the best possible scenario to provide a personalized experience for a customer without being intrusive and without violating any kind of privacy, right? so
Well,
so it's a fine line that you have to walk, but if you get it right, it's always going to make sense.
retention, raising the number from 65% to a higher number, using data, learning about the customer. So you had that going in the internet, and now you transition that to voice. What about voice makes that work? What
Mhm.
what have been the advantages of conversational commerce? People use that phrase again, that enables retention, that enables that stickiness, that raises
Mhm.
the number from 65 to higher.
Yeah, so I think when people talk about conversational commerce, right? I think there is I want to talk a little bit about how we view conversational commerce and what does that mean to Blutag, right? Conversational commerce, initially when people started building a lot of these voice experiences, were long conversations, right? Like, be like, let's try to have a dialogue. The technology today exists that somebody can sit and actually talk to their smart speaker and we can have a whole conversation. Guess what, John? People don't want to do that. People don't want to sit and talk to anything, right? They just want to get stuff done, right? And when we start looking at things that, and people always talk about that, hey, I only use my smart speaker to listen to music, set the timer, check the weather. Guess what these things are? These are not conversations. These are tasks that people do. So what we realized and we saw looking at all the data, and we didn't get it right the first time around, John. We did try to go that route where we designed a longer conversation. It did not work well, right? But what we saw with all the data, because we do have the most amount of data for conversational commerce outside of Amazon, out there, because ours is across independent retailers. What we saw and where we saw the most value was people want to perform shopping related tasks, right? And what are these tasks? Quickly checking your order status, being able to reorder something, being able to check when your next subscription order is getting delivered, right? And these are the kind of things that we created into a complete platform, saying that what are the shopping related tasks that people have to perform that should not really require them to launch a browser or open a mobile app. And those are the things, once you provide that kind of convenience to your customers, that directly creates an extremely elevated customer experience and results into a sticky and a loyal customer and directly impacts your customer retention revenue. So
You
that's how we
just
look at it.
and just Shilp right there again. That's another MBA course you just provided us because you cracked and tore apart, you know, perhaps some of the initial prejudices or conventional wisdoms about conversational commerce. Oh, engage in a dialogue and you can get this deep, rich, whatever experience, quote unquote, with the customer. But you've equated value with efficiency, equated value with getting stuff done. A great phrase. And it sounds like your clients and your clients' customers are responding very well to that. I mean, give us some examples of, you know, that in practice. For
Mhm.
instance, so and so orders this and it's working this way. Give us some of the use
Yeah.
cases.
So I'll give an example, of the simplest one that we feel is providing probably one of the most values out of voice is grocery shopping, right? I mean, if you think about the kind of experience of a grocery shopper, people are ordering kind of the same, a lot of the same things every week over week, right? I order the same type of milk, I order the same type of bread, butter, right? And I'll talk about like what we did first, right? So we've had grocers on our platform for a while, right? Some really
Yeah.
large grocers. Our initial, thing a few years ago would have been, I want to buy milk, and then the voice assistant comes back and says that, hey, I found this milk. Do you want to buy this one, or do you want to buy organic? Do you want to buy, 2%, 1%? You're having this conversation. Guess what? After that first question, nobody wants to have that conversation anymore. So today, our most successful grocers have an experience where I can just go and say that, hey, can you order me milk, eggs, butter, bread? And we do the heavy lifting on trying to make sure that we understand what they mean when they say bread, what's the quantity they want, what's the brand they want, and how often do they want it. And it keeps adding it for you. We don't even come back and confirm what they ordered. We actually ask them, be like, hey, do you want to enable this quick add feature where we'll just basically add what we know you want? And once they say yes, which probably 95% of the people say yes to that, we actually have created, we first used to, again, the next iteration is that you added the milk and you said that, okay, I've added. What else do you want? Butter, added. What else do you want? We even took those things and made them even shorter by introducing, sonic elements to that, where
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
would first say, I've added, and then we would have a particular sound that indicates that the item has been added to cart. And if it already exists in the cart, there's a different sound that, hey, you already have it. Do you want me to still add it? Once they listen to it a couple of times, we then replace the phrase add it with just the sound, because now they're trained, right? So now when you say, add milk, you hear the sound ting, butter ting. And so those are the kind of things where we don't start that at the very first interaction, but as they start getting used to it, we start adding these elements that further enhance and elevate that experience, right? So that's an example of what we've done from very first time when we were really having a hard time even getting somebody to add one item to the cart, to now a stage where people come back multiple times a day and continuously add items to the cart, and are resulting in a 14 to 18% increase in cart sizes for grocers,
See,
which
that's
for
so
them, when
huge.
they're
That's so
delivering
huge.
item, it's huge. It's a game changer, right?
That's huge. So
Because
huge. So huge. I mean,
what
Shilp, I'm thinking, go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep going.
no, no, so I'm saying, especially for grocers, when you think about it, right? The business is shifting digitally. All grocers are now, the digital grocery space, e-commerce is growing really fast. Uh, an interesting fact that I recently learned is that more than 60% of grocery baskets when people walk the aisles are impulse buys, right? And those numbers, once they go online, starts dropping because
Hmm.
people haven't been able to introduce the element of impulse purchasing online. And that's what voice adds is. Throughout your day, you're driving your car, you have a voice assistant in your car, you're like, hey, tomorrow I want to make some pancakes. Guess what? You definitely don't want to pull your phone out when you're driving, right? But what you can do is you can tell your voice assistant that you want some pancake mix, right? So these are the things where, the reason we've been able to add on an average 14% cart sizes for grocers is because of introducing these elements of impulse buying, where you have to imagine that from the moment they wake up in a digital world to when they go to bed, impulse can happen anytime throughout their day. Voice is the most friction free and the convenient way to capture that impulse and help increase their cart size. So yeah, I'll stop there. I know you had a
No,
question.
Shilp, listening to this story, I'm reminded of conversations that I was a part of 6, 7 years ago with an esteemed MIT professor who was thinking about this and said, gosh, this voice thing, all you'd have to do is simply say yes, and then it happens. And you're doing that right now. I mean, the vision that I was hearing in Cambridge that time, you're doing that. All you have to do is say yes, and you're also enabling that. And let's talk about your partnerships here, because without the partnerships and the integration into commerce platforms, I wouldn't be able to have the confidence that this type of milk and from say this brand or this vendor or whatever would be what I'm used to buying. So talk to us about the integration that
Mhm.
makes this work. It's your voice platform, your voice effort, and then integration into commerce. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so our platform is designed so that it can, understand most product catalogs today. And for that, we have done integrations into, all the major e-commerce platforms. We're integrated with Shopify, Magento. We're integrated with BigCommerce. We recently announced a partnership with Salesforce Commerce Cloud.
Congratulations.
As we
Yeah.
were getting, thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's really super exciting because we are starting to see larger retailers also, needing to figure out a voice strategy. And that's why, when we started initially with platforms like Shopify, where obviously you get a lot of large retailers as well, and we have a good chunk of them, but also being able to capture, a platform like Salesforce Commerce Cloud, where you do typically get larger enterprise clients, is something that we're super excited about. And um, we've recently also done integrations into, subscriptions. Subscribe and save has been a big business, right? So people order a coffee and they want to subscribe weekly, bi-weekly. But we also recognized a pattern about subscriptions. 50% of people cancel their subscriptions within 6 months. And one of the biggest factors around that is because they don't have enough visibility or control into that subscriptions. They don't know when their credit card is going to get charged. They
Mhm.
really don't know that I'm running out of this coffee. When is the next one going to come? And they, if they're going on vacation, they don't know how to just cancel one because I'm going to be out, right? So we did an integration recently with Recharge, and we're also integrating with other subscription platforms. We let them do just three things. We let them quickly check when their next delivery is. We let them skip a delivery, and we let them change delivery frequency. And
Get
what that
stuff
has
done.
done
Wow.
is that's resulting in reduction in subscription churn. So in one area, we're helping them increase card sizes and increase their AOV and retention revenue. On the other hand, we're now also able to leverage voice to reduce subscription churn, which collectively makes for the perfect recipe
That's just
to have that.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's just fantastic. Shilpa, we're running out of time. I mean, you and I could talk about this for probably the next 3 hours, but let's toss one more question to you, then we'll wrap up. When voice and commerce was kind of getting kicked off, and people would look around and say, this is interesting. Yeah, this could be really good, but I don't want to share my data with third parties. My data is my data, or my data, it belongs to me and my customer. I'm not want to give it away to somebody else, especially someone who may be a competitor. Talk to us about that. How are you handling that, and how is data being protected?
Yes, I mean that's something that I think, John, we've kind of touched a little bit upon that, at the Voice Summit when we were talking, and
Yeah.
that's something that we take very seriously. And I'll give an example of as you can imagine, one of our initial conversations when we're out there pitching our product to large retailers, right? Without taking any names, you can imagine any of the larger retailers out there, right? Uh, Telling them that, hey, we can build this experience for you. It will be available on a lot of these voice assistants, including Alexa. The first answer, and I could probably give you that, it was a more than handful of meetings that lasted less than 30 seconds because the response was, hey, we don't do anything Amazon, thank you for the meeting, right?
Yeah.
And that's a real concern, right? And that concern continues to exist, especially when you go into this world of ambient computing, where you have these devices that are, people are thinking that they're always listening to you. They start feeling that, hey, I'm seeing this ad because I said something, and now my, Instagram shows a
Yeah.
certain ad. And those things are the biggest reason why people are looking for platforms like Blutag and not really trying to build it directly is because we become the layer that protects their data from these um, different voice assistant platforms, right? So you can imagine that we are almost a firewall between the product catalog for a grocer or a retailer and between the voice assistants, whether it's Alexa or whether it's any other voice assistant. So yeah, I mean our focus is that we're always on the side of the retailer. We are going to be their protection of the data against the voice assistants, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, Shilp, and it's so I've been in retail and connected retail for some 40 years. The protection of that data is paramount. And so, congratulations on what you're doing and giving the opportunity for independent retailers to connect with their customers without that fear. I think it's huge. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. We've been talking to Shilp Agarwal of Blue Tag. Shilp, this has been tremendous. We're going to come back and talk to you again. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Shilp, thanks for the time. This is the Future of Voice
Thank you for
podcast.
having me,
I'm,
John. This is
I'm
great.
John Stein. Thanks so much.